Ridiculous. Okay, so how do you sound ridiculous? Maybe your frenemies sound ridiculous. Maybe it's just not you. So in the future, we're talking 100 years, 400 years, 1,000 years from now, hopefully humans are still alive, that you are quite possibly going to sound ridiculous. Or your friends, frenemies, enemies sound ridiculous. And so I'm in the middle of the aisle, but some of these political issues end up affecting finances. And I'm not gonna, I'm gonna try not to say my stance on any of it, but you know, outward things, let's do one that's real easy for anyone to understand. But utopia, those that really want a utopia of whatever, it might not be realistic, but those either side of the aisle, if they've reached utopia, utopia per se, argumentatively, some people are going to say, oh, those that said it wasn't possible are going to sound ridiculous, and those that, if they haven't reached a utopia, will sound ridiculous. If they wanted it, like, what were they thinking? Of course, everyone knows it's not possible because of this theory we discovered. With that said, there is so many things like slavery of the past, the KKK, they sound ridiculous to us, even though the KKK, there's still some people around, trying to recruit KKK members. And so you have that dynamic, and, are they crazy? Are they not crazy? And so taking a little lighter subjects, abortion's been in the news over the past year. That has always been something that just always clashed. Of course, immigration reform and all of these other issues. But something that I came across, and I was like, okay, someone's going to sound ridiculous. And all of this stuff, I came across another issue. It was gender equality or something like that. And so whatever statistics that you have, gender equality, racist equality, anything like that, and when it comes to compensation at work, or even when you bring in the transgenders into the mix, then you've got this whole equality thing going on. And then when statistics even report out into the future as more stuff starts to happen and starts to go on, especially like with transgenders, like, oh, transgender women are paid more, transgender men are paid more, that their pay went up or whatever. And people will say, oh no, it's due to this and not due to that, or due to that and not due to this. And they're doing that right now with whatever statistics or facts are handed before them on whatever issue, whether, why a certain number of people are in that predicament, the financial predicament that they're in. They'll say, oh, well, I have mentioned this before, but like a whole race of people intentionally decided that they were going to be more poor than the other race in drastic statistic droves sounds absolutely ridiculous. To say that, and I forgot the quote that someone had said, but it goes along with also, you always choose your outcome. Some people's choices are taken from them, while other people's choices, they do make it. And it could be a combination of other many factors. There's people get sick and stuff like that. So there's all sorts of things that don't come into play. People have to take care of their grandkids or their nieces or their nephews, and that becomes an expense, an unplanned expense that just happens. But stuff like, I've actually changed. At one point I thought higher education should be free, but you can always try to get a citizenship in another country where higher education might be free to you, at least to a certain extent, maybe not the other graduate degrees. And, to what extent should it be free at, and how that plays out, and where we're at with basically, even if it's not free, I said I was going to try, but I'm not trying now. The extent to where the tuition is at, and the ethics behind going, okay, students, you come to my university, I'm the president of the university, and I make 10 million, 100 million a year, and you're going to leave here with $100,000, $200,000 in student loan debt, and your first job is going to be $25,000, $28,000 a year. That crap is evil, and you know it. And if you're like, no, the president worked hard, and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some good benefits, or they shouldn't even necessarily make that much money. But on the same campus where you have someone earning $10 million like the president of the university, you also have some of the low-wage staffers maybe making $28,000, $33,000 a year. And so even if the compensation dynamic wasn't there, and then college professors, and then even nowadays, depending on where you're at in the country, because like there was in Oklahoma, there was this whole 10-year span where the teachers in the certain school district in Oklahoma didn't get a pay raise, but you have other states like certain parts of Texas, California, New York, and where it's just like, oh, the starting rate for a teacher is $75,000. That's what it was 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, this is public information. You can just look it up on the internet yourself. The difference, of course, being the 1 year and the 15-year teacher is only maybe like a $10,000 difference. So once they get the experience, it's not that much different. So it's a good leg up to begin with, but it sort of plateaus out afterwards. But you get to possibly, if you went to a low tuition institution for your interdisciplinary studies degree, then you would have lower tuition. But I mean, California, I remember seeing something like $110,000 a few years ago on a YouTube video, and I was like, I can't even verify it, because it's probably true. $110,000 each on their teacher salaries. So a household of two making over $220,000, and I don't know if that was the starting rate, but it's just like they were in their 20s, so they were still relatively young. And what you have here is people that in California, maybe at the time, this was before the $15 an hour minimum, state minimum wage in California, who were probably making $15 an hour and might have had a degree. So you've got that in California, Chicago, and all those places where they do have had union strikes, and they do make quite possibly more money, except of course it's not $200,000. And then you have elementary school principals. Back in 2003, an elementary school principal could make $80,000. So, I mean, there are factors, and you're like, shouldn't they be paid more? Well, do you really want teachers going into the education system solely for the financial opportunities? And it has gotten to that point. I've known some people who have gotten into that education because, heck, corporate's not gonna pay it, and why should education pay more? It's paying more, but whatever. So, with that said, sorry about that rant. I went on a rant right there, but what we pay for our cars, and I was attending college, and a former person who worked in the car industry said at the time, so this was back in 2006, and he said it takes about $750 with all the labor costs and all of the parts to make a car. I think he might have been underdoing it back in 2006, but let's say it even costs $1,500 for a brand new. The year right now is 2023, so for a brand new one, the equivalent of that year would be 2023 right now, $1,500 car. And, but they have to pay for all these other costs, supposedly, or they wanted to increase their profit lines, and if they don't sell, the costs included the cars that they don't sell. They couldn't just lower the cost, and then the other problem was, how often do you buy a new car? Of course, if the car was a more comparable price, we might buy one more often instead of just fixing it up. And then the labor costs to fix up the cars, the mechanics, that could affect their price and the market there as far as what their wages are and what those costs entail to fix one up. Because heck, it's $2,000 for a brand new used vehicle, and it's really good, and so on and so forth. So, with inflation, and how ridiculous are we going to look with our inflation costs if they don't get that mechanism in place? And, how ridiculous are we going to look as a society? This is another thing, just with our savings and our spending, and I don't want to say that various just exploitations across, like, maybe, I don't mean to bring this up because but I'm just going to say it, well, I'll say that debt markets. So just the debt market, they were saying that there was predatory lending back in 2007, 2008 in the financial crisis and stuff like that. But is there predatory lending going on with certain credit card companies to people with bad credit? If they declare bankruptcy, they get all these credit card offers in the mail. And then they have monthly or annual fees on the credit card as well. And maybe no grace period as well. So their interest starts accruing. Usually someone might get 60 days on a credit card or something. So you've got that. And then you've got the fact that they know that they're not credit worthy and they're just trying to collect the fees and interest. But, is that going to change, or is it going to be like, no, this is a free market and everyone's rich and it's going to be a whole new thing and we looked ridiculous for not fixing it to begin with because we had the minds to do so and stuff like that. So anyway, just sounding ridiculous. I think we will look to possibly the future. I mean, the price of houses, like, just one last note, the price of housing has gone skyrocketed. And then this guy, he was on YouTube, and it was just a few years ago, and he said he was making 30 grand when he came out of college. So this might have been like 2015, and I'm like, when I came out of college in 2005 with my bachelor's degree, it was like 30,000, and I didn't like that. And then I remember in the 90s, I think I remember it being even higher, like 50,000 or 60,000 to start or something. Back when I was in like high school, middle school, to start right after college. But the market changed. I mean, the markets were going down from 2000 to 2003. So it could have changed. And so the employers choosing to start, I think quite possibly the most well-qualified candidates at the beginning, and I've heard this before, and you could disagree, the most well-qualified candidates, to start them at the bottom and be like, okay, we're not going to give you anything, and tell them they don't qualify for something at a job that they could be better at than the other, and quite possibly their boss. And I feel like that happened to me when I was working in corporate. And then I was working on my master's, and one of my bosses said, you have experience and you're working on your master's. I had like 2 or 3 classes left at the time. I have my master's now. But he was like, you're quite possibly more qualified for this than I am. And I didn't really feel that way at that point because, you have this brainwashing technique going the whole time, like you're not good enough. And while you're doing that, and to sit there and go and have the table switch, and then to know and reflect if maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, but it really didn't matter at that point because of the discount to education is probably not there as prevalent, but because they require the education. But it's like, we're going to discount it to your face so we can pay you less. And it's just a theory. But anyway, comment, like, subscribe, and if you have anything that you think that what else we might sound ridiculous about, then just put it down in the comments. And thank you. Tune in, Finance Nation. It is May 14th, 2023. So I'll see you next time. Bye.